Going to open the meeting. Reading of the meeting's notice, please.
The Board of Directors of the School District of the City of Erie, PA will meet in regular session on Wednesday, August 14th, 2019 in the auditorium at East Middle School, 1001 Atkins Street at 6 p.m. by request of the President, Frank Petrunger, Jr.
Thank you. Roll call.
Mrs. Alexandrovich?
Here.
Mr. Casillo?
Here.
Mr. Fabrizi?
Here.
Mrs. Feeney?
Here.
Mr. Harkins?
Here.
Mrs. McNair? Mr. Spagel?
Here.
Mr. Titus?
Here.
Mr. Petrunger?
Here. Pledge of allegiance followed by a moment of silence for Mary Ann and Bramzak, retired secretary, passed away on June 17, 2019. Ms. Goldie Johnson, grandmother of Erie School Board Director Angela McNair, who passed away on July 17, 2019. Ms. Ann Downing Sala, retired teacher, passed away on August 9, 2019. Our moment of silence this evening is also in remembrance of the 5 children who passed away Sunday in a tragic fire, including 8-year-old Lamaya Jones and 6-year-old Luther Jones Jr., who both attended Erie's public schools, and 4-year-old Ava Jones, 2-year-old Dalvin Paisley, and 9-month-old Jaden Augustiniak. We stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd like to announce the board met in executive session on Monday, July 1st, 2019 at the Dr. James E. Barker Leadership Center, 148 West 21st Street in Conference Room 3 from 12:45 p.m. to 1:15 p.m. regarding legal and personnel matters. On Wednesday, July 31st, 2019 at the Dr. James E. Barker Leadership Center, 148 West 21st, Conference Room 3 from 12:24 p.m. to 1:14 p.m. regarding legal, personnel, and real estate matters. On Wednesday, August 7th, 2019 in the library at East Middle School from 5:42 p.m. to 5:57 p.m. regarding legal, personnel, and real estate matters. On Monday, August 12th, 2019 at the Dr. James E. Barker Leadership Center, 148 West 21st Street in Conference Room 3 from 5:29 p.m. to 6:54 p.m. for legal matters regarding negotiations and real estate matters. And this evening, Wednesday, August 14th, 2019 in the library at East Middle School from 5:18 p.m. to 5:58 p.m. for legal matters regarding negotiations, personnel, and real estate matters. Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to start by reminding parents that the first day of school this year is Tuesday, September 3rd. You can find information about bell schedules, our district's dress code, meet and greet nights, and more on our Back to School portal at eriesd.org/backtoschool. We also encourage parents to enroll your children before the first day of the school year. Registrations are accepted throughout the summer, Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the district's administration building at 148 West 21st Street. Complete information, including enrollment packets and immunization requirements, are available on our website. If you have any questions, please call Child Accounting at 874-6150. Family information guides with district policies, district calendars, and more will also be mailed home within the next week to every district family. And finally, we were all very saddened to learn of the death of the 5 children that were killed in the tragic fire that occurred this past Sunday. On behalf of the district, I would again like to express our deepest condolences to the family and friends, and also like to let families know that counselors and other support professionals are available to anyone who may need them or need assistance in the upcoming days. We also have additional supports at the start of school to help out any students or families that need them. That concludes my report.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Question for the superintendent about the stadium. How's that, the construction, when do you expect it to be wrapped up and the facility open and available for games?
I'll defer that question to Mr. Bruckman.
The concrete restoration is on schedule to be completed by the August 30th deadline as per the contract. The new turf will be delivered tomorrow. They have to fix the under E-layer in a couple of spots, and then that is on schedule to be completed by September 13th. That does mean that the first 3 home games for the Erie Royals football team will be played at Gannon, but they will be playing their October 13th home game there, in which case we plan on making sure that we do a good job of celebrating the stadium.
There'll be other games between those days, yeah, okay.
Mr. President, I might add too, at the homecoming game, we're in the process of planning a rededication ceremony for the stadium, and we'll be having a meeting, and Mr. Spagel will be contacting you to help us coordinate with the various veteran groups as well.
I move we accept and approve the report of the superintendent.
We have a motion approved by Mr. Harkins, second by Mr. Casillo. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing of citizens, persons desiring to speak for 5 minutes must submit their request in writing to the Secretary's office at least 1 week prior to the board meeting. All others may speak for 3 minutes. We have 3 people that signed up, 5-minute speakers. First one, Miss Sheila Woger, Erie, speaking on the topics of property tax increase, the Eagles Nest Leadership Court, and the possible closure of Erie Rise.
Yes, sir. I first give honor to God tonight for allowing me the privilege to speak to you tonight. It was unfortunate that I heard the comment made last week by Attorney Senate regarding the charter school, and that the students probably couldn't read a newspaper. However, I'm standing here not only as a taxpayer, but I was also a former substitute teacher for the Erie School District. I was also a substitute teacher at Erie Rise, as well as a bus monitor. And I also was employed with the Eagles Nest Leadership Corporation as a math teacher for their construction program. First of all, with the taxes, it's something that has to happen, but we would like to see something in exchange for what we are paying. The statement that was made last week, it is true. More so what I found in the Erie School District. I don't know how many students I encountered in the Erie School District, 4th graders and up, that can't read. And I think that should be a mandate that if you can't read 1st grade, you shouldn't pass. I thank God for my segregated education. I never had a book read to me as a child. I learned to read in 1st grade. My teacher was Mrs. Morrison. The first book I read was titled Tip. I was a reader at the end of my 1st grade year. You can't say that for a lot of students in the Erie School District. Why is that? Also, the taxes, as I said, is something that has to be done. And also, Superintendent, you're pointing your fingers at Erie Rise for their low test scores, but you failed to mention the number of students that are released from the Erie School District with the letters of completion rather than a high school diploma. I've not encountered as many functional illiterates as I have since I moved to Erie, and that's been over 20 years ago now. And that's very embarrassing when you speak to a child, well, an adult now, a young adult, and they're functional illiterates. Where did you go to school? Erie School District. And they can't read. It's 12 years. That's a shame, especially today. Maybe we should go back to a segregated public school system. I mean, there's a preconceived notion that we as a people can't be taught. Well, why are you our teachers if you have that preconceived notion towards us? We need more people of color in these classrooms. We can be taught, but there's a method. I would like to share with you an experience that I had at Wayne Middle School. I was subbing in a 4th grade class, and I noticed that in the reading portion, there were some words that were highlighted in yellow. And I was prompted by the Holy Spirit to ask the students if they knew what the words meant. They all said no. So I saw that there were some dictionaries on the shelf, so I had the students get the dictionaries. There were not enough for every student to have their own book. Then, much to my astonishment, they had no clue as how to use a dictionary. As a substitute teacher, I quickly gave them an illustration of how to use a dictionary, and I saw their faces literally light up because I showed them something. This was near the end of the school year that their teacher had not introduced them to. That is a shame. The next day, I was in 7th grade teaching a math class, And as I began to write on the board, one of the students said, "Ms. Walker, you can't write on the board." I'm like, "Excuse me?" Well, that's how I was taught. So I continued to write on the board, write the problem out, explained it to the students, and then engage them, to invite them to come to the board, and I'll walk you through it. And apparently, it brought the attention to the principal and the vice principal, because they both busted into the classroom, no excuse me, but rather they yelled to the students, "Why can't you act like this with Mr. So-and-so?" Well, apparently, Mr. So-and-so was not engaging them. He was just teaching to them. There is a method in teaching, and I found that out as a substitute teacher. I wanted to open up my statement tonight with a statement that I heard from a younger Donald Trump. And he stated that the greatest threat to a white man is an educated black man. And it seems that the majority of the students that I encounter that can't read are black males. I had one little boy sitting in a classroom in the front of the class, facing the blackboard, and I tried to engage him to join the other class. "No, Ms. Walker, I have to sit here. You know, this is my assigned seat." And so I didn't press it. And so at the end of the class, as I was walking them to their special, I said, "Why are you sitting in the class?" He said, "Because I'm always getting in trouble, Ms. Walker." Fourth grader. Looked up at me, bright eyes, African-American child, I can't read, fourth grade. That's why there are a lot of behavioral problems. The children have no idea as to what's going on. They can't keep up because they don't know what's going on. They can't read. And that should be a mandate that every child should know how to read by at least second grade. And we can't push it on the parent because, as I said, I came from a family of 10. Never had a book read to me. I learned how to read in school. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. All right. Our second speaker tonight, Mr. Thomas Sandell, Erie, speaking on the topic of proposed policy changes.
Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see you all again. Hope you're enjoying your summer. I'm here again today to talk about the proposed policy change with this responsible contractor. I'm really just going to come here and dispel a few myths and some things that I've been told, and give you some more information and give you my perspective on this. There's a lot of misinformation. There was a very interesting article in the paper today that called this a pro-union rule, which is very interesting because this policy doesn't say union anywhere in it. All it says is we wish responsibility for contractors. And there's a multitude of reasons for that. And the reason is, I'll go through all the reasons here. Safety for the students. Taxpayers spend a lot of taxpayer money on school construction projects, and accountability to the taxpayers is very important. And the taxpayers deserve, and the students deserve, the highest quality of work done in their schools. The other issue with that, with this policy, the building trades has made it an initiative. We're a fabric of this community in many ways. And one of those ways is community outreach. We go to Erie High multiple times a year. We try to spark the interest of young people going to public school all across the county to participate in these programs, because Erie's young people are leaving here in droves. And we're providing opportunities for them, for students who maybe aren't cut out for college. And this has been a very big struggle for us, because a lot of the mentality from, and I'm not blaming anyone, but from certain counselors and things, they're pounding the idea of college. And it's just not for everyone. So when counselors tell young people to go to college and leave Erie because there's no opportunities to you, that's not true, and it's not fair. So this apprentice requirement, I heard an argument that it's only, only union and whatever. The fact of the matter is this. In the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, there's almost 500 apprenticeship programs. Only 79 of those programs belong to the building trades. But coincidentally, we train 89% of those people. So these programs are out there for non-union contractors, but if they choose not to participate because they don't want to be responsible to the community, to the workers, to the school district, there's nothing that we can do about that. We wish that they would participate and educate people the way that we do. My organization, the plumbers, alone, we spend $2 million a year training our apprentices. Some of them are in the back here. One of them went to East. He's sitting right back here in the back. We spend $2 million a year of private money, non-taxpayer money, to train our people. And we provide the highest skilled workforce out there. And that goes for me and all the people sitting in this room that belong to the different trades. We all put that investment into this community. And that's very important. And we embrace important things like diversity and giving a skilled wage to keep people here in Erie in the tax base. And that's important. And I feel that judging this thing and saying it's a union issue, it's not fair, because these contractors could be responsible and could participate and could train people the way that we do, and they choose not to. And I hear this thing about low bidders and all this stuff. Construction's very busy right now. It goes up and down. And when you look at all the prevailing wage projects across the county, schoolwork and otherwise, you notice a trend. And that trend is it's the same contractor base bidding all the work, the same for the city, the same for the county schools, the same for governmental buildings. We have a contractor base here that is bidding that work. And times get busy, but I would like to ask, please, respectfully, that you reject this policy change to the responsible contractor policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next one would be Mr. John Treader, speaking on the topic of school district policy.
Good evening, Mr. Petrunger, members of the school district, and members of the administration. I was going to speak tonight about the responsible contractor policy proposed changes, but I request your permission, President Petrunger, to yield my allotted time to Frank Sirianni, who happens to be here, who is president of the Pennsylvania Building and Construction Trades, with your permission.
That's fine.
Frank.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak here tonight. I know that you normally don't have people outside the school district speak, but I will give you a little background. I was born in Warren, Pennsylvania, and my father and my family, we lived in Northeast for a while, and my father supervised the construction of Lakeview Country Club, and then after that, we kind of wandered down to Pittsburgh, then over to State College. So I have a little bit of a understanding of the area. I was born in Warren County. I know a little bit about the area. So again, I thank you. I'm the president of the State Building Trades Council, and I reside near Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Our organization has 16 regional councils, and Great Lakes Building Trades is one of them, which TJ is the leading officer of that. We as a state organization oppose any changes to the responsible contractor language that's already in existence, or an avenue for people not to adhere to it. The 133,000 members that I represent, many of them in the western part of Pennsylvania and the northwestern part of Pennsylvania, agree that, you know, the lifeblood of the construction industry and to be able to do quality projects for you in the future depends on good training and education. Collectively, through the state of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, we spend over $250 million out of our own pockets to train and educate your students as should they decide to come into the construction industry. As far as the myth about this being a union-only option, TJ did touch on that. out of the 500 or so construction apprenticeship programs, some of them are by non-union, the balance of the 79 would be non-union. So anyone in this area who wants to have an apprenticeship program, they could go to their local non-union association, in which they have a chapter here, and apply and become part of that and have an apprenticeship program. It's not very hard to do. It has to be approved, or they could combine with another one. As far as saving money by having bidders that don't have apprenticeship programs on there, I don't think you're really going to gain anything by it, other than maybe people not adhering to the Prevailing Wage Act to have a better discount on the bid day, because all the wages are equal under the Prevailing Wage Act, which your projects relate to under this. So if you have everybody bidding apples to apples, it would be advantageous for you to require apprenticeship programs, because they're graduated rates throughout the term of an apprentice. So that would save your school district money. And it would behoove the non-union who don't have a apprenticeship program to do that, so they could not only sustain their business longevity and as well as help you financially through these times. Everyone right now is busy in the construction industry. I've been in the construction industry for 40 years, and everybody's busy. And when it's busy, you get less bidders. And that's what's going through right now. Not only that, when people are bidding multiple jobs, they have a bonding responsibility. You have to have a bond to bid on these projects. So they could be overextended in bonds right now, which limits the number of bidders. So if you have 5 projects in your pocket and you're extended on your bonds, how are you going to get bonded to do another school project, which is usually a requirement? Along with that, you have payment periods that don't necessarily fall in line with regular construction outside of the private industry. You pay at certain times upon completion of certain things. There's not a lot of upfront money. So, and timing may be another issue why you're not getting bidders on some of these projects. You always have the lowest bidder, and that's what you're shooting for. But in the law, in the procurement laws, it says lowest responsible bidder. What you've done in this community, if you've created a level to make sure that everyone who is a taxpayer in this area and everyone who is a student in this area is going to have a safe environment and have a good quality project at the end. I don't know why you would want to go backwards on that. I think you want to make sure that your community has a growing industry of construction and a future for construction workers for all the companies, union and non-union. But I will tell you this, the prior speaker was absolutely right. I think the paper was wrong, the way they stated this. There's a lot of communities that have these agreements. The Lerda in Harrisburg has one, responsible contract language. Chester County has them. There's a bunch of municipalities that have them. And again, thank you for letting me step back into my past and come back to Erie and speak on this issue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If anybody'd like to speak for 3 minutes, please state your name, put your name on and address on the tablet provided at the podium. Anybody would like to speak for 3 minutes?
Francis Piazza, Erie, PA. Teaching has always been my dream. It was the dream of my mom and aunt, had a combined teaching career of 70 years. The best part of retirement for me is when I run into students and give a big hug and ask them what they've been up to, and always make sure to tell them. I'm proud of them, and God bless them. I want to recognize Teresa Zumagala is a wonderful leader. She was able to do things and get teachers to do things I never witnessed before. I think I speak for many of the teachers when I say, give her a raise, give her a raise. Next, Pam Wiley does a fantastic job on curriculum and helped me make my teaching better. Her talents and efforts should be recognized. I'd like to thank Karen Pulaski, my speech therapist, to make this possible. And lastly, I'd like to thank all of you for the opportunity to teach in the Erie Public Schools, and God bless all of you. Thank you.
Good evening, people.
Good evening.
My name is Mike Horniak. I've been a 50-year, 68-year resident of City of Erie. I attended kindergarten in the Erie School District. I want to talk to you about a construction policy that we've already had a few speakers on. But I think I want to do a little reading, and I want to give you a little maybe myth opportunity that has been changed. The Erie School District Administration, being you guys, believes that the policy might be flawed. And they want to lower, you guys want to try to lower the cost and increase the bidders. As renovations go, we've found that some of them have come in over budget, okay? But maybe we should look at it, and in the school district, the Erie Times, Dr. Polito, has stated that sometimes it was the warranties for some roofs that made the project go over. Again, we've erred on a few things. The first is prevailing wage that a few people have talked about. And we must go back on that because I don't know if everybody understands that the state sets the prevailing wage. They set a wage that is fair between any contractor, okay? The thing about it is, it makes the playing field level. It makes everybody equal, whether they're open shop or union. Wages and benefits of the same have to be paid by both parties. So everybody's paying the same wages or benefits. You know, if you need 6 2x4s to build a building, contractor A needs 6 2x4s, contractor B needs 6 2x4s, so the price of material is usually irrelevant. In a case of a registered apprenticeship, though, the state sets an apprenticeship wage, which may be lower, okay? Now, if you don't have an apprenticeship, you have to pay all people the same amount of money. Maybe we should look at the prevailing wage problem. Therefore, apprenticeship programs, we can show, don't increase the price, and the training money for most of them, even with the unions, is paid for by the union members. These career paths pay well, yields, skilled workers, and employ local people, okay? Local programs like the Eagle's Nest and policies that you guys have and everybody has to make sure that apprentices are kept on jobs eliminate provisions that don't allow apprenticeships. So when you do not allow this policy of having to have apprenticeships, you really don't change the price, you lower the competition. And one more thing is, I'm a proud union guy. I've been at 50 years of a painter, and the dumb painter really does have a college degree. So I'd like to think about something.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to speak for 3 minutes? Not seeing anybody, we will move on. Oh.
Hi, name's Rick Carlson, carpenter, local 420. Regarding the contract negotiations going on. These union contractors, like he says, it's paid by the out of our hourly wages, contract negotiation. And so each one of these union contractors has trained professionals. These guys make their living doing this. It's not some Joe Blow, friends and family of the mayor, the city council, or the school board. It's, yeah, a little $25,000 job, I'll throw it to my nephew or whatever. These guys make their living at this. And you have to be bonded. That's a responsible contractor. It's a very important thing, you know. You can get anybody to come in and lowball it and get the job, totally screw it up, and then a professional has to come in and fix it. In the meantime, you might have mold growing from a leak or whatever, you know. This provision of apprenticeship is guaranteeing that you're going to get a professional job. These contractors are bidding, you know, they're talking about it's a union thing, but these union guys are bidding against non-union companies that are paying some of them $10, $15 an hour less total package. The prevailing wage, you know, I don't know, I think that only addresses the actual check amount. You know, we've got pension, health care, which I'm not sure that that's included in prevailing wage. So for being a union contractor, to be able to beat out a non-union, like the paper is talking about, at $15, $10, $15 per person, and beat it and do the job responsibly, bonded, professionally, you can't get a better deal for your money than going union. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to speak?
Hello, my name is Stephanie McLaurin. I'm here to address the school uniforms. As a single parent, I pay taxes too, school taxes, property taxes, entrepreneur taxes, and paying taxes everywhere. I can't afford to keep paying uniforms and regular clothes. I see kids every day of the week wearing uniforms, on weekends wearing uniforms, and they're coming to school with holes in their clothes and all this. I don't think that is feasible for anybody to keep paying for uniforms and regular clothes for their kids. It's just not fair but I'm single and I'm making it, but I'm barely making it buying school clothes and uniforms that I can't afford no more. I can't afford to keep doing both of them.
Okay.
It's just not feasible. A lot of people are struggling paying for uniforms and also paying for regular clothes for their kids. It's just a struggle for a single mother like me trying to make it.
Superintendent would like to say something to you.
Okay.
Is Erica Irwin in the audience? If you go see that lady back there, she'll be able to hook you up with somebody that will help support that, help get you uniforms, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to speak? Not seeing anybody, we will move on. Any reports on committees and liaisons? Not seeing any, we'll move on. There's no unfinished business. We'll move on to new business.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Harkins.
I move we adopt the new business of the school district, that being item 6, and the supplemental, that being item 7, and all that's included.
Motion to approve by Mr. Harkins, second by Mr. Spagel. Discussion. Mr. Casillo.
Just a question, Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
Item 6.25, disposition of unused vehicles.
Ms. Neal,
Is
take
that
that one.
a typo, or is that, what is the disposition of unused vehicles?
Well, the disposal of unused vehicles. We have a number of our old vans that are sitting at the service center that are not usable anymore. Since they are titled, we need to go through the closed bid process in order to get rid of the unusable ones that are beyond repair.
Yeah, well, the item says disposition of unused vehicles, making it appear as though we're going to sell vehicles that we're not using, when I guess we need to rephrase that.
Well, we have clarity on it, so.
Yeah, I would defer to
Yes.
Mr.
President.
Wachter.
Mr. Casillo, the agenda item in the detail indicates that it is a plan to sell unused vehicles. There are certain vehicles that are being unused, that are not used.
It's in the disposition, number one. Number two, an unused vehicle, to me, denotes a new vehicle.
Understood.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Alexandrovich?
Yes.
Mr. Casillo?
Yes.
Mr. Fabrizi?
Yes.
Mrs. Feeney?
Yes.
Mr. Harkins?
Yes.
Mr. Spagel?
Yes.
Mr. Titus?
Yes.
Mr. Petrunger?
Yes. Did you do something else?
I did. We did something else.
Okay. We move on to separations.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
To bring them before us, I'll move that we approve them, that we consider them, with the understanding we'll deal with them separately.
Yes. We have a motion by Mr. Harkins, second by Linda. I'll never get it right, Linda, I apologize. And discussion.
Mr. President,
Mr. Fabrizi.
let me preface my remarks by saying that when we talk about it being a union or non-union issue, okay, that the appointment of Mr. Zogby by the Republican legislature made it a union issue in my mind, okay, that appointment at that time, and that the things that he's asking for are anti-union. So that's how I feel about it. So I'm going to say that I've served on this board for the past 8 years, and during that time, we have made many difficult decisions addressing the district's financial health. We have accepted all aspects of the financial plan put forth by Mr. Zogby, except two: the change in the policy to our contract bidding process and the outsourcing of our custodial staff. I have voiced my opposition to both of these measures since they were first suggested. I'm 63 years old, and I've watched the Republican Party since the 1980s do everything in their power to weaken and dismantle unions and diminish the rights of the worker to organize. I believe that both of the proposals that we are voting on tonight fall in that category. I believe that they are politically motivated. For this reason, as a matter of principle and a matter of conscience, I must vote no on both of the resolutions we are considering this evening. Thank you.
Anybody else like to? Ms. Feeney.
Mr. President, as I've listened to Mr. Zogby's arguments for changing our responsible contractor policy, I see a lack of substantial data to support this policy change. The conjecture that we would simply support union workers at the expense of our taxpayers and students is not based upon fact, but upon speculation. That if we change this policy's language from requiring an apprenticeship program to an either-or, we will increase competition and lower costs. However, it seems there is limited evidence to support this argument. There are many variables in play in the bidding process, including a busier than usual construction season. The administration has not fulfilled their obligation to provide us with enough data to change my mind. And the argument that our policy is a sole factor for our projects coming in over budget is ideological. Superintendent Polito almost always provides us with graphs, containing data supporting his recommendations, and he's very thorough, he's very thoughtful in how he collects and represents the data, and I would say it's an accurate statement that our board greatly appreciates this attribute. But without data from our administration to support this policy, I don't see an argument for reversing my vote. I believe in apprenticeship programs. Pennsylvania is a keystone state, and educational programs are a keystone of our state. Early in my career, I benefited from an educational apprenticeship program called the Cadet Program. Like the speakers tonight, I benefited from a rigorous program that included instruction, mentoring, and extensive practical classroom experience. This attack on apprenticeship programs has become personal in Erie, Pennsylvania. We are fighting for access to quality post-high school educational opportunities in northwestern Pennsylvania and have been for a while. We do not have a community college, even though we support 14 across our state. And to add insult to injury, this policy will weaken programs that do promote education. We have adopted many of the mandates of the Financial Improvement Plan. We increased taxes. We challenged tax-exempt statuses. We negotiated pilot agreements. We adopted a strategic plan. We adopted new math and reading curriculums. We launched a Welcome Home campaign and are negotiating enrollment caps at our charter schools to reduce our charter school expenses, which are the highest expenses in our budget. Finally, let's talk frankly about charter school reform. Specifically, the governor yesterday is directing his Department of Education to develop regulations that allow districts to limit student enrollment in poor-performing charter schools, require transparency in charter school admission and enrollment policies that do not discriminate based on intellectual or athletic ability, race, ethnicity, gender, or disability, among other student characteristics, that they hold charter schools responsible, and that their operators do the same transparency requirements that school districts have, that they give greater oversight of charter school management companies which stand to profit from students enrolling in their schools. They prevent charters from overcharging for services they provide to students, initiate a fee-for-service model to cover the department's costs associated with implementing the charter school law, to recruit money from charter schools for the time and services the departments have provided for them, when it reviews applications, distributes payments to them, and provides legal and administrative support. Governor Wolf didn't stop there. He also is calling on the GOP-controlled General Assembly to pass legislation to place a moratorium on new cyber charter schools, cap enrollment in low-performing charter schools until they improve, and subject charter management companies to the same transparency rules that districts must follow, and create a fair, predictable, and equitable charter school funding formula. Charter reform will financially benefit our district far more than a change to our responsible contractor policy.
Mr. President.
Mr. Casillo.
Thank you, Mr. Bertrunger. I am in total agreement. I look at, well, I'm a numbers person as well, and I fail to understand how, with one incident that was supposedly submitted on a bid that was substantially lower than the other bids, would have been used against the argument for a responsible contractor, to maintain a responsible contractor. I question whether the organization that submitted the low bid would have been able to complete that project. I think it was an error on their part to submit it at such a low figure that no one was even near that, albeit union or non-union. So as far as I'm concerned, I think that the methodology that's used to eliminate the contractor's responsibility in our bid process it's flawed. There's no way we should. And it was brought up that the Erie School District was only one of a few in the Commonwealth that out of the 500 school districts, that Erie was one of the very few that, that had this clause in our proposals. Well, I say we are a leader. There should be 498 other school districts that have this inclusion in their contracts. Lastly, I just want to briefly touch on the second portion, 802, regarding the outsourcing of custodial services.
That's going to be separate.
I will wait until that,
Yes.
that comes up. I completed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Tom? Yes.
I suspect that I'm not going to be the most popular guy in the room here today, but that's all right. And I certainly appreciate everybody being here in attendance. I know you're all busy, have families. I appreciate that. But we are here at these meetings all the time. Our biggest concern is educating our children. That's why we're all here. Probably most people in this room, certainly. But we also have to deal with the business side of the house as well. And we have a fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers, so this way we can run our business of the school as reasonably as possible. So if you guys would be here more often, you would see that we have these conversations very frequently. We talk about money more than we do about education, unfortunately. That's what we have to do. And so we are really beholding to the same people that we have to tell people we're raising taxes to. We have to tell them that, you know, we're going to be giving different language that's going to help. I suspect it's going to increase some costs according to some of the numbers that we've seen, whether they're, you know, the data is correct or not, we don't know, but I suspect so just with some of the individual cases we've seen. But, you know, and as much as I appreciate your concern, Bob, about how 498 other districts should be doing this, I think that if most people are doing something, there's probably a reason for that, and I suspect that it's a good reason not to. I do know that in speaking with, I work on the east side of town. I stop by almost all the projects at the schools. Very frequently, I'm speaking with a lot of the contractors, and speaking with them, and they're from out of town, they're from Pittsburgh or from wherever. And every time I talk to some guy from Pittsburgh, I'm thinking that's one less job that somebody in Erie, for somebody from Erie has. And I see that quite a bit. I think that there's, talk about myths that some people brought up, and we didn't actually talk about the language. I wish maybe we, and I don't want to belabor the point here because I know how it's going to play out. But when we were having our discussions outside of this venue, there's essentially one layer of requirements that make sure that everybody is going to bid on a project, has a certain level of expertise and bonds and so forth. And then after that, there are two subcategories. You either have an apprentice program, which is great. I'm 100% for apprentice programs. To say that I'm not would be wrong. And you either have an apprentice program or you have these other requirements that lays out the responsibility or the responsible contractor policy for them. Not to go into all the reading of that. But, you know, I've used the example of, let's assume there's 6 or 7 electricians that are in a family-owned business. These guys are all master electricians. They don't have to have an apprentice program because they don't need it. These guys have been working for 25 years, 30 years. They don't need that. So that business would be ineligible to compete, which I think is just unfair. Well, this isn't discussion. This is me speaking. Thank you. And this isn't a pro-union or an anti-union. This is well, we have to make the best financial decision for our district, which means it's for our children. Again, I am against increasing our tax hikes as much as possible, and this is one way to do that. And the other thing that hasn't really been discussed here is when this votes, and presuming that the language does not go the way I'd like it to go, we have to relinquish control, whether some or a lot, of our school district to the state because of this. And they said that they may not enforce it all the way, but it's a little bit. I am anti-big government. and they will be taking over our job. The people here will be relinquished over to Mr. Zogby back there. That's the way it works. And I trust these 9 people, to include our superintendent and all the rest of the stakeholders, more than I do the state. I don't know that the state does anything well, let alone run our school. And I don't feel that my children, who are students within the school district, are going to benefit by having the state in control of our school district over this one policy. The same policy that is written because we had financial issues, and the state finally kicked up some money, not enough, but still it's $14 million. And I suspect in the relationship going forward, the next time we need money, they're going to be a little bit less likely to work with us because we're not playing ball with them. I could go into, just like the one woman mentioned, that there's not enough dictionaries in our schools. That's right, and the way we get that is by getting proper funding from the schools. And I completely agree with my co-board member up here. Charter reform is the biggest part of that, and that's a whole different subject from this. But we need more money in our school, however we can get it. So that's where I am. And again, I'm not anti-union. That'd be crazy. My brother's been a lifelong union member. My father's a lifelong union member. So it's not and there should not be a for or against unions. I think that is, that is incorrect. That's my statement.
Thank you. Anybody else? If not, I only have one thing to say. I mean, one thing I can tell you about this board, it's a very good board. We all have different opinions. In the end, we come to our own decisions on what we believe. I totally understand the apprenticeship. I did an apprenticeship many years ago, 4 years, become a master carpenter. I understand it. I can't go against my core values. So with that, I'm going to ask for a roll call, please.
On just the one.
Yeah, just 801.
Mrs. Alexandrovich? No. Mr. Casillo?
Unequivocally, no.
Mr. Fabrizi?
No.
Mrs. Feeney?
No.
Mr. Harkins?
No.
Mr. Spagel?
Yes.
Mr. Titus?
No.
Mr. Bertrunger?
No. We will move on to 802. Request for proposal. Request for proposals to outsource custodial service in accordance with the mandatory requirements of the financial improvement plan. I need a motion even to discuss it. Motion by Mr. Harkins. Do I have a second? Second by Linda. Discussion.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Once again, I think we need to look at fairness. To eliminate positions that are on the low end of our employee costs, to me, is a travesty. We have unequivocally, again, I use that phrase because I absolutely mean it, we have a custodial staff and support staff second to none. They take much pride in the work they do every day. And one thing you never hear from them are complaints. They do their job every day. They come into the workforce every day. And without them, this entire district would be in shambles. Without maintenance, what can we possibly look forward to? And for the cost end of it, as I said, the janitorial staff, our custodians and engineers, the support staff that we may eliminate are the least expense in the payroll for the school district. And I just cannot believe that we would balance our budget and be so much further ahead by outsourcing our custodial staff. Now, granted, if we assuming we went forward and obtained bids for the custodial services, it very well would come in low for the first contract period. But I guarantee you, as I sit here, the next time around, that's going to increase, and then increase, and then increase again. And ultimately, the firm that may obtain the bid knows that the school district, if we eliminated the jobs, eliminated all of our equipment that we've accumulated, we're at their mercy. So if they want to increase it the second 2 years or 3 years of that contract, what are we going to do? We won't be able to hire our own staff back and train them in time to move in and take back our district. So we're at their mercy. So they can do whatever they want. And I've seen it before, where a company will come in with a low ball and, oh, you're going to save $1 million. Well, yeah, maybe. And maybe the first year or 2 years or 3 years. But then all of a sudden, your materials cost increase, your labor costs increase, and that then diminishes and will continue to diminish in the future. So with that, I am voting against the request to eliminate our custodial staff. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Mr. President.
Mr. Fabrizi.
I have spoken against outsourcing on numerous occasions. Everybody on this board knows my opinions on it, on the effect on the organization, on the effect on how it will affect the procedures that take place in the schools, and how the companies down the line have add-on costs that would end up costing us just as much as Mr. Casillo has stated. And I totally agree with Mr. Casillo and would rest on the rest of my comments on the first statement that I made. Thank you.
Mr. Titus. You're fine.
I'm the firm belief that the best way to combat an argument is data. I do think, so to know where we stand, how we can make the best financial plan and movement forward, we need to know the argument that's going to be utilized and that was submitted and accepted for the financial plan. My worry is if we don't at least do the request for proposals, we will not know where we stand, where the company, or where it is, and we're putting ourselves in a very dangerous position, like Mr. Spagel had just discussed, by going against the plan together the whole way through. So as like PFM had laid out for us. So when I go to cast my vote, it is not because I'm looking to outsource. It is, but I want to know the data that's there. I want to know what's going to be utilized against us, so that we can make the best plan moving forward and have a counter action against that.
Thank you. Who was next? Mr. Spagel.
Well, I do recall, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, and I wish I was better prepared for this, but the data that we did receive, I think from Brian, I think that came from PFM? Yes. And it showed the average cost per man hour of the custodian, in-source versus outsource. I don't have those numbers in front of me, so I can't articulate myself as well as I'd like to, but I was struck by the amount of the difference that we would be saving. Now, again, we went this route before, and Robbie will tell you when we tried to outsource the subbing, and that didn't work. But I do know, again, our responsibility is to the students. And I've always thought what we need to do is first think the way we prioritize it, in my mind, students first, taxpayers second, and then employees. That does not mean by any stretch of the imagination that I do not, or anybody else here values all of the valuable, very valuable employees of the school district, from Mr. Polito down to whomever. But having said that, we have made decisions that have eliminated principal positions. We've eliminated teaching positions. We've eliminated positions throughout the whole line and block chart of the whole school district. Now we're not trying to eliminate positions. We're trying to eliminate debt is what we're really trying to do. Not current debt. We have to think about, not this year, we have money in our checking account, right? We do. But take a look at the projections. Only 4 or 5 years from now, we go from having a surplus to having a negative amount in the checking account. Is that correct? Yes. Pretty close, without going into those details. We can't, this is not, just like you run your business at whatever you do, or your home, you can't think about here, now, today. You have to think about the future. You know, my son's going into 8th grade, and I want to make sure when he graduates that we don't have to concern ourselves so much with finance as we do with curriculum. And it's not easy. It's not something that is popular, but it is financially the correct thing to do. And you know, that's where I have to side with making the financial decision, not the easy decision, in my opinion.
Ms. Feeney?
This is difficult for me because I greatly value our custodial services and our engineers. But I would be a hypocrite if I asked for more data to approve a responsible contractor policy, and then I said, oh, I don't want a request for a proposal, I already have my mind made up. So I also believe that we need to follow through with the request for a proposal and then make our decision after that.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Mr. President?
Yes.
Just a comment. We can request proposals in the RFP, but we don't have to proceed. We can still be in compliance with Mr. Zogsby's financial plan.
Sure.
By requesting the proposal. It does not mean that we have to proceed from that point forward. Assuming that's the case, I have no objection. You can get 20 requests for bids, as long as we don't proceed with any mandate to move forward with that. I question PFM's numbers coming in. Again, you know, we're 305 miles from Harrisburg. Harrisburg's numbers are nowhere near what our numbers are. You know, we're still one of the poorest counties in Pennsylvania. We have the poorest zip code in Pennsylvania. And I think that we need to do everything we can because we are a human organization. We're not a business, you know, and it can't be treated like a business. We are a service organization. Our service is education, absolutely. But we need support from the Commonwealth to be able to continue on with the services. So I'd like to see the Commonwealth come back and give us another $20 million, and this would all be moot. So if we are voting strictly to obtain proposals, I don't have a problem with that.
That is what you're voting on.
As long as we don't have to act on it down the road. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else before I speak? I just want to say, I've been involved in this district for 38 years. 30 years working here, 8 years on this board. I know what these custodians do every day. It's not just custodial work. It may be helping that secretary bring that 4 boxes she's got in the trunk of her car that's across the parking lot. It may helping a kid get in a locker. It may be many things. When you bring in an outside company, they're not going to do that kind of stuff, and if you ask them to, they're going to charge you more. Now, I was here when they wanted to bring in Kelly Services. We argued hard against it. Told us it was going to save $500,000. Wasn't going to be a problem. we got outvoted and it came in, and a year later, they couldn't fulfill what they promised us. It's just against my core values. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. We're all entitled to our own opinion, entitled to our own vote. And that's all I ask of anybody up here, is ever to vote how you feel. If nobody else, I call for the roll call, please.
Mrs. Alexandrovich? No. Mr. Casillo?
Yes, provided we don't need to act further on it.
Mr. Fabrizi?
No.
Mrs. Feeney?
Yes.
Mr. Harkins?
No.
Mr. Spagel?
Yes.
Mr. Titus?
Yes.
Mr. Bertrunger?
No. Is that a stalemate?
The tie does not pass.
Thank you. Approval of the minutes for, go ahead, John.
I move we approve them for those dates listed.
Motion by Mr. Harkins, second by Mr. Spagel. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Bills and payroll.
Move we pay them as presented.
Motion by Mr. Harkins.
Second?
Who was that? Second by Mr. Casillo. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Alexandrovich? Yes. Mr. Casillo?
Yes.
Mr. Fabrizi?
Yes.
Mrs. Feeney?
Yes.
Mr. Harkins?
Yes.
Mr. Spagel?
Yes.
Mr. Titus?
Yes.
Mr. Bertrunger?
Yes. Awards on bids. Oh, report of the secretary, I apologize.
Move we approve that.
Motion by Mr. Harkins, second by Mr. Spagel. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Alexandrovich? Mr. Casillo?
Yes.
Mr. Fabrizi?
Yes.
Mrs. Feeney?
Yes.
Mr. Harkins?
Yes.
Mr. Spagel?
Yes.
Mr. Titus?
Yes.
Mr. Bertrunger?
Yes. Awards on bids.
Move we make the award.
Motion by Mr. Harkins, second by Mr. Spagel. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
One moment, please.
I know, I didn't wait long enough, I apologize.
Okay. Mrs. Alexandrovich? Mr. Casillo?
Yes.
Mr. Fabrizi?
Yes.
Mrs. Feeney?
Yes.
Mr. Harkins?
Yes.
Mr. Spagel?
Yes.
Mr. Titus?
Yes.
Mr. Bertrunger?
Yes. Any other matter? If none, I ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Motion by Mr. Casillo, second by Mr. Spagel. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting's adjourned.
Casillo and Spagel.